Hit the button. All right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, people of all places, welcome again to the Voice of College Football 365 Live 8 o'clock Sunday show. I'm one of your hosts with the most, the captain of the Hooligan Express, Tornado McCray, or as some of you might know me by that alias right there. But it's fine. It's fine because I have three wonderful gentlemen here with me as we prepare to get college football season started. Next, we're going to start with the man up above me, Mr. Tommy. Introduce yourself.
Yeah, we're 6 days away. We finally can actually taste football with y'all UNT team kind of being the team to kick us off, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But playoff picks, which is always a little bit nerve-wracking, but we'll get to that here in a second.
Then we got up in the top right corner, my co-host from North Carolina channel, the proficient procrastinator himself. Introduce yourself, sir, to the people.
Yo, what's good? What's happening? How you living? And we back. Football is back, baby. I love it. I'm so ready.
And last but certainly not least, the other host of the Texas show, Mr. Wi-Fi himself, Matthew Miller. Introduce yourself, my boy.
Mr. Bad Wi-Fi himself. Yeah, I'm just excited. Yesterday was the last Saturday in 4 or 5 months that we're not going to have college football. So really, really excited. We're about a month away from my favorite month, which is October, because you have every sport going on and MLB playoffs, college football, all that stuff going on. So I'm just super excited. We're moving into the great time of the year.
Yes, sir. And man, I'm just excited to get this week started cracking. I know North Carolina, we kind of helped kick it off this week, going overseas to Ireland just to take on TCU again. But hey, you know what? It is what it is. It's a new year. It's a new team. I got some new hair. Everything can go well in North Carolina this year, maybe. I don't know.
Y'all boys already got questions. Dudes asking what's going on at Texas. Is the team really a mess right now?
We'll tune in on Tuesday for a much more in-depth conversation about that topic.
You want the real crash out? Get that on the Tuesday episode.
Yeah, we'll break it down in more depth. But the short answer is I think the answer is no. I think there is messes to be cleaned up. But at the end of the day, I think that's probably the case for every team around the country. Texas is just Texas, so there's a whole lot more attention on them.
Listen.
Yeah, I mean, a crash out from the dad of, the eighth cornerback on the team isn't going to get
not ideal.
Wait,
yeah, it's not ideal.
That's what happened?
Oh yeah, he tweeted out some stuff. It was like expose people. I'm like, okay, who are you going to expose? One, and two, your son is the eighth cornerback on the team, so chill out a little bit. So
he said politics, which usually means my kid isn't playing, which probably shouldn't be. But again, it's a preseason thing that you don't want to have to deal with, and we'll talk about it on Tuesday in depth. But I tend to believe the answer is no. I guess we'll find out if the answer is yes.
Heck, the crazy thing is, like, we went through our little struggle when it came down to like players' parents last year.
I'm sure.
Because man, that was a saga.
Last season. We had so many parents coming out the woodworks saying
talking about how the locker rooms disjointed, the coaches are out here doing this and doing that. You got one coach that got put on dismissal because he's promising parents tickets and doing this and doing stuff he ain't supposed to.
And the bad part is we couldn't even say the parents were in the wrong. We're just like,
no, we couldn't even defend it.
It's just a mess.
Mess.
Because we would have loved to sit there and say, "Oh, this is just a minor problem and everybody's overreacting," but no, nah.
Oh, he's locked in. There's no doubt about that.
Facts.
I don't know why. Every time I see his photo pop up, it looks like either a sea urchin or like an emu.
It's a sea urchin,
and I can't tell which. I'm like, is that a sea urchin or an emu? Oh, okay.
He's an urchin.
Nice.
Because I can say this, like, and it's been some mess going on with a few different teams across the country. Because let's see here, because TCU dismissed their starting free safety.
I did see that.
We'll talk about that when we get to that game. That's
I did see that.
There was somebody else that got dismissed from the team. Clemson just indefinitely suspended one of the defensive tackles for a previous arrest. What team was it? They just dismissed somebody else for conduct detrimental to the team?
That was Texas.
Texas. Okay,
Ty Anthony
Texas.
Smith. Yeah. And that's obviously one of the messes that we'll talk about on Tuesday. But I think that one's relatively cleaned up. But we'll figure it out. I think the TCU one might bleed over quite a bit, and it might be something they have to deal with throughout the season. And that's something we'll talk about when we get to that game.
Because he was your starting free safety. Came in highly touted, highly anticipated to make a big major impact, especially after you just lost your best corner, your best safety last year to the draft.
Well, here's another mess that we were talking about. Virginia's running back got arrested for animal cruelty.
Not animal cruelty. Like that's an offense. We don't hear it often at all for football. That's a new one.
Virginia running back Solomon Beebe was arrested earlier this week and charged with 3 misdemeanor counts of animal cruelty. According to the report, a housekeeper at his apartment complex told an animal control officer she saw Beebe hit his dog multiple times, including holding the dog against a wall and punching it with a closed fist. Yep.
I need football back so bad.
All right. Seems like when the summer happens, people just start acting out, bro. People just start acting out, doing crazy things that don't make no sense.
Like the season starting off crazy. Then I don't know if y'all saw Ashton Genty got hurt today.
Yeah.
Got an injury today, so he got carted off the field today.
I feel bad for anybody who already took him, who already had a draft and already took him. Tragic.
Yeah, right, guys. So Ashton Genty's out.
Mike Washington's gonna have a big year now.
Cleveland. Yeah, Cleveland just put a guy on indefinite. They're starting defensive. I think they're starting edge rusher. He's out.
Well, the Browns just lost a player to LSU.
Yeah.
Which is something we can talk about when we get to the week one breakdown. But
here's the bad part. We were talking about this just 2 weeks ago when we were saying this landscape and all of this is about to get wild. Now we got players going back to you know what?
Yeah, it's gonna be a mess. Let's make some playoff picks. We'll get to the messes when we need to get to them.
All right, boys. Playoff predictions. We love them. We hate them. We're better than Paul Feinbaum. I don't care what anybody says. Almost anybody's better than Paul Feinbaum. I was staying on my grave with that one. But
Stephen A's working his way down.
I ain't even rocking with that right now. We talking college football here. Stephen A don't know enough about NBA basketball half the time nowadays. So I don't even want his college football picks. But I want to know my co-host. I want to know what y'all got picked, how y'all see the CFP playing out.
Well, actually, we're gonna hear yours first because I believe yours
we going
coming
with
on
me?
the screen.
What's
going on, Michigander? Welcome in, bro.
Boy. Put me on the screen. Let me show you how I work. So, for those of you who are wondering, for those of you who are curious, my 12 teams getting in. We got number 1 Georgia, number 2 Ohio State, 3 Miami, 4 Texas Tech. Those are my 4 seeds. They all win their respective.
Diagnosed with AIDS.
Ooh, dang.
Oof.
That sucks. It's like
Paul picked Texas this year. I would say he's a very smart man.
Yeah, I bet. But if he picked anybody other Texas, you'd call him stupid.
Of course.
It's like those are my four top seeds. I have each of them winning their conferences. So Georgia winning the SEC, Ohio State taking the Big Ten, Miami taking the ACC with Darian Mensah, and then Texas Tech taking the Big 12. Now let's get to the fun part of it. My 5, Oregon. My 6, Texas. Y'all still getting in there. My 7 seed is actually SMU. My 8 and my 9. yeah. I'm standing on it. I don't care. My 8 and my 9 are Indiana and Virginia. My 10's Alabama. My 11 is UNLV, and my 12 is Old Dominion. I had a lot of fun making this bracket, and I don't care. I really do not care. It was fun. Oregon, as y'all can see, first round, I got Oregon beating Old Dominion. I mean, it's a group of 5. Old Dominion's just there. They got there. They made it to the dance. I'm happy for them. Texas beats UNLV in a close one that I think is actually going to bring some life into you, but it's going to be closer than it should be. And it's more so like they just make a late run and y'all just hold on. I got SMU upsetting Alabama, and I'm just picking it because I just feel like that could happen and it'd be funny. And then I got Indiana and Virginia in a shootout. For some reason, for some way, I don't know why, but my brain just says it's going to be a shootout. Then next round, Georgia takes on Indiana in what's going to be actually a really close game, a really defensive-minded game. It's going to be a 16-13 low-scoring game, in my opinion. Ohio State falls to SMU, and I might have some bias because I don't like Ohio State. I don't give a damn. I really don't care. It's my list. Y'all can miss me with that. Then I got
a dog has SMU in the playoffs.
Yep. And guess what? 2 years ago, you didn't think SMU was going to go undefeated in the ACC, so I ain't trying to hear none of that. Texas, y'all gonna take down Miami, and I think y'all can beat Darian Mensah. I don't think he's CFP ready per se. Y'all been there enough times. Y'all can handle business, so y'all probably get to him and shake him up, and then just go down the field methodically, end it with a field goal, easy money. Then Oregon beating Texas Tech. That's where I think that goes. Everybody's talking about Dan Lanning, how he's going to do. I think he gets that win. But then in the semifinals is where it gets gritty. Hey, you got Georgia beating Oregon.
6 teams in. This only gets worse.
I mean, there were 2 in last year. What are we talking about? There were 2 in last year.
So this clearly wasn't NCAA sim.
It really wasn't. It really wasn't. And then we got Texas taking on SMU. I think SMU pulls out an upset here, but then Georgia's going to beat them in the championship. And I like how everybody's saying my picks are crazy when we just had a 1-10 matchup. And SMU really did just make the playoffs 2 years ago, and they weren't bad last year. So you know what? It's okay. I stand on my picks. That's what it is. If y'all noticed, I do not have Notre Dame in this joint. I do not have Notre Dame in here for reasons. Because bump Notre Dame, I'm sick and tired of. I hope the first year that they have that new rule where they're ranked top 12, they get in. Nope, you're not getting in. Not on my watch. Bump them.
Yeah, it's one of those things with playoff predictions now.
ACC tiebreakers.
Throw 12 teams at the wall. There's always going to be an Ohio State, a Georgia, those big time teams that we think are going to be in it this season. But at the end of the day, in SMU, it's a weird team. It's a team that I'm not fully bought into this season. But if you need a little bit of Kool-Aid to go behind that one, this kid, Kevin Jennings, can play football. He's a really, really good player. He absolutely can be a big-time playmaker for that team. So I think there's a lot of good there. Again, very aggressive for my taste, but at the end of the day, them making the playoff is not crazy at all.
Listen,
I don't disagree. I almost put SMU in my bracket too, to be honest with you, because SMU is one of those teams that hopped in the ACC a couple years ago, shocked everyone year one, has been a steadily good team throughout the ACC the last couple of years, despite any kind of injuries or any kind of misfortune they've come through. They've always been a top 5 ACC team since they got here. I don't see why they couldn't make a push to the playoff. So I don't disagree with them being there.
And for anybody who's getting on me about having 2 group of 5 teams in there, right? So getting on me about that. Y'all do realize the last 2 CFPs, we've had 2 group of 5s. Because last year it was JMU and Tulane. The year before that, Boise State is a group of 5. And SMU got it. Well, SMU wasn't a group of 5 then. So I guess they had just joined the ACC, but still.
I'm about to say it's going to happen, Michigan, because if I remember right, I remember there being a statement saying that they're trying to push for a group of 5 team, for 2 group of 5 teams every year moving forward.
Yeah, I assume that would be in the expanded format, but it's one of those things that those conversations continue to be more convoluted and annoying by the day.
This was 2030. I could see SMU making it that far, but I think they're still building.
Listen,
I tend to agree, but we'll see.
I don't care. Hey, listen, y'all ain't got to drink my Kool-Aid. Y'all ain't got to drink my Kool-Aid. But you know what? If they get there, if SMU gets there, y'all all gonna be looking at me like I was crazy.
No, I agree. I think they can make the playoff for sure. I don't think people realize like their turnover in college football for like the 12 playoff teams is usually between 4 to 8 different playoff teams every year. So you're basically guaranteed 4. You can get up to about 8 different ones. So you can't just copy and repeat. That's what a lot of these magazines do. And a lot of predictions like, oh, let's just choose like 9 or 10 of the same year. That's not going to happen.
Hey, you know what? Guess what? And if I'm right, it hit like crack in the 80s. How about that? If I'm right, it's hitting like crack in the 80s.
If he's right, it's the 80s.
It's the 80s. Call me.
Okay. The next one we have up, I think, is Joel. So let's put that one up.
Yeah, that was mine.
I think that's
so. As I'm saying, as y'all can see what's happening here. Got my top 4: Miami, Georgia, Oregon, Ohio State. All of them winning their divisions this year. Because my thing is, coming in at the number 5 spot, Indiana. I see Indiana making a run back to see what's going on. If it ain't the good crack, it's the crack. It's the middle of summer, Florida. Hashtag swamp ass. I was like, I got Indiana running it back again because I don't see. Yeah, they lost a couple of big pieces last year, but I don't see them having that big of a detriment going into this year, especially with Cignetti still at the helm. I don't see them falling that far. You also got, I also had to put Texas in there. As we've all talked about, Texas on paper is one of the best teams in the nation on paper. And if they can put it together to match what you see on the sheet, they're definitely going to be in the playoff. LSU, as much as we hate Lane Kiffin tends to go in almost any situation and make a team successful in some form or another. LSU has always been a decently well set up team, especially now that they have one of their old OG coaches coming back to help with the team. I don't see why they wouldn't make a playoff run. BYU is my surprise Big 12 champion. I see BYU somehow putting it together. And like we talked about, I think it was just last week, BYU has one of the best coaching staffs in the Big 12 right now. The continuity that they bring in each season just kind of helps with their push for this upcoming season. Iowa, if Ahmad Hardy comes back and he's running like he did last year, one of the best running teams in the nation last year, I don't see why Iowa couldn't make a push to make it to playoff, especially with some of the competition that's coming behind it. Penn State, I see them sneaking in through Big Ten. I don't believe they're going to be the biggest threat coming in, but I do believe they can push hard enough to make that playoff run. Oklahoma, I just had to pick an 11 because I wasn't sure. If we got two G6s, I actually had Tulane over here because I had Tulane running it back for a second year. And then my G6 team, Washington State, who's been one of the better offenses quietly for the last several years. It doesn't, like, people don't expect them to be there, but if you need a G5 team or G6 team coming out of the defunct Pac-12, I don't see why they couldn't. The only other real competition over that way is Oregon State, and nobody's really talking about Oregon State or probably ever will.
I ain't talked about Oregon State since
Uyunglele went over there.
I ain't even talking about them then. Probably since
That's the last time I talked about them.
For 05-06 era.
That's about a wait no G6, but I forgot about Washington State. So Iowa's dead last in the Big Ten in returning production. They only have 7 returning starters. That don't make no difference though.
It really don't.
Yeah.
Not now. Not with the transfer
the way
portal.
The transfer portal set up, it doesn't really matter if you only have 3 people coming back.
I tend to agree. I think the other piece of that is returning production doesn't include a guy that was out with injury and Reese Vanderzee that was a great receiver for them a year ago, and Tony Diaz comes up from the D2. I think it's going to be a pretty, as Iowa offenses go, I think it'll be a relatively fun offense.
I actually think a hot take is their offense might be better than their defense this year.
It's one of those things where with Phil Parker's over there, I'm not going to pick them to be any lower than like 20th on the defensive charts, but I do think it's going to be an offense that presents a whole lot more problems than the offenses of Iowa's past have.
I mean, it matters with continuity.
It matters, but at the same time, in the current state of the transfer portal, if you get a good talent coming in, especially if you get it early enough, it doesn't matter as much. Now, back in the day, it mattered a lot more, especially because the transfer portal, you would have to sit out a year. So, that definitely mattered, and there was just more continuity.
And on top of that, the other thing is, look at it this way. Michigan had a lot of players come back in the last couple of years, but where are they at? Still watching from home every year. So
it's a balancing act between bringing in the right talent to make your team better and having the leadership and continuity that you need. So again, it's a back and forth thing. You've seen teams be successful without it. You've seen teams be successful because of it. It'll be a fun back and forth.
Now, for Incredible, I'm gonna let you know, I didn't pick these scores.
No,
I did not.
It automatically generates
scores.
I picked all my scores.
He did pick all his.
I picked all my scores. I handpicked those scores.
I didn't pick no scores because I'm terrible at picking scores. I never get these things right.
Oh, listen, I picked all my scores.
I do have Iowa. I do have Iowa beating BYU first round. I think Iowa's defense is going to outlast BYU's offense. I don't see them being able to put all 4 quarters together.
That
Indiana,
Red River, bruh.
Indiana was
Red
the
River
obvious
rivalry.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh,
you got to
God.
have some juice first round.
Oh my
You got to have
God.
juice first round.
Hey, I ain't gonna lie. There might be a fight. There might be a fight in that game, like legitimately.
I mean,
That'll
and
be
that's,
the first.
and that's not, and whose problem is that, Michigan? It's not ours. It's Michigan's problem, not mine.
That'll be the first Red River game in a home stadium in the history of the
Forever.
game.
And like I said, and on top of that, like I said, you got to
move it to a neutral site just because.
First round. That's it. You got to have that juice game first round, and a Texas-Oklahoma rivalry game first round of the playoffs is going to set the playoffs up for some hype for the rest of the series. I see LSU taking out Penn State. LSU just has more weapons. LSU just had, like I said, the coaching staff is a higher quality, especially now that James Franklin is no longer in Penn State. I don't see them having enough juice on that team to beat LSU out. Then going in the second round, Miami is going to hand Iowa's ass to them. It just is what it is. There's nothing we can say about it. Iowa's just not going to be able to match up. Georgia beating Indiana. I feel like that's also going to be a very solid game overall. I agree with Myron. It's going to be more of a defensive game than an offensive one. Especially if Georgia's passing game isn't up to par, it's going to be tough to take Indiana out if you can't pass on a good clip. Oregon and Texas, that's also going to be game of the week there coming into the playoff. That's going to be a second game of the week. Texas is probably going to have some of the biggest highlight games coming into the playoffs. I think Oregon is going to just be able to hold on just a little bit longer coming down the stretch with all the players coming back, the defense being solid from last year. That quarterback, like more to wanting to run it back because they made it the second to last game last year. They want to make it to the final. I see them pushing a little bit harder than Texas on this. Ohio State versus LSU. Ohio State is going to be the obvious winner coming out of this. They're a very good team, very good quarterback. Jeremiah Smith is going to be a monster again this year. That defense is just going to hound LSU out the stadium. It just is what it is. Now that Miami-Georgia matchup, we're going to see a lot of what we saw from that Georgia-Ole Miss game. It is literally going to come down to the wire. It's going to come down to who is going to make the biggest mistake first.
And you got Georgia making the biggest mistake?
Yes.
Happened the last couple of years.
Yes.
No, Tommy, you don't understand. For him?
Yes.
Well, I went to Georgia as well. We'll get to my picks in a second. I don't have them there either.
I'm being realistic about this. It's going to come down to one thing. It's going to come down to one. It's going to be one big play Georgia's going to screw up, and they're not going to be able to hold on to it. It's the same thing that happened against Ole Miss last year. You put the worst cornerback in a one-on-one situation, he gets destroyed with the last 30 seconds in the game. You lose. It is what it is. Then Ohio State, Oregon. Ohio State is just going to have a little bit more weaponry at the end of it. That offense is just going to be able to beat out Oregon's by 1, 2, 3 good plays by the end of the game. Coming to that final, Miami is going to come in, handle business, get their revenge from last year against Indiana. And they're just going to show that Ohio State, as good as they are, they're not about to be back-to-back champions no time soon.
Hey, that would be 25-year anniversary for the last time Ohio State Miami played in the national championship game.
Oh, that would be fun.
That
would be awesome.
Ooh, you know Michael Irvin gonna go. Nah, Michael Irvin gonna go stupid on the sideline. Like y'all thought my thing was crack. Michael Irvin gonna look like a whole addict on the sideline. They do that.
Just drop them in the comments and we'll pull them up and we'll break them down real quick. But in terms of Miami, I mean, they're firmly in the mix of those 7 teams that can pull it off. If Darian Mensah can elevate this season, which all signs point towards yes, as far as I'm concerned, that's going to be a team that by the end of the season has an offense that might just be downright impossible to stop, frankly.
Mm-hmm.
Tommy, I believe
pretty much all their weapons are coming back from this season except for about what?
And you add a guy like Cooper Barkate, that is a problem coming from Duke.
Tommy, yours is going to be up next. There we go.
If you had a graphic,
why won't it let me put it up?
Let's see here.
Because
someone may have to put up Tommy's. It's the CFP3
Get it here.
Where is it?
Yeah, we
got it.
Sweet.
Yeah. So I'll roll through the seeding really quickly. The 4 teams that I think are going to get the buys. The 4 teams I think are going to get the buys this season. I think Oregon is going to lead it off. I have them going 12-1, winning the Big Ten, being kind of that dominant team we expect them to be. Georgia, really manageable schedule. I think they're going to roll through that pretty comfortably, win another SEC title, and be the number 2 seed. Notre Dame, I lean them over Miami at this very moment. That could obviously change by the time that game kicks off, but I'll lean towards Notre Dame to get the 3, Miami to get the 4. Then you have Texas against.
Listen. Can I wait for Michigan versus Sooners? That game is going to be great. It should be. Be.
But my 5-12 game is a game that we're going to see early in the season. It's Texas UTSA. This UTSA team's really, really veteran. I think there's a lot of different teams in the Mountain West I could have picked in the Pac-12. I think those teams are going to eat each other alive just a little bit. I think you're going to have a lot of teams right around the same area. I think the American winner gets out of it. I think it'll be UTSA. Then for my 6-11, it's Ohio State LSU. I started thinking about who's the final team I could add that would create the most fuss, the most problems, the most energy going into this thing. I think it's a 9-3 LSU team led by a Lane Kiffin guy that a lot of people don't like, and a lot of people especially don't like with him adding some NFL players the last little bit. So I think that's just going to make for a little bit of fodder going into this thing. I'll pick LSU at my 11. For 7-10, I go Oklahoma BYU. BYU is my pick out of the Big 12. I lean that veteran over Texas Tech just a little bit. And then for Oklahoma, I think John Mateer is going to put it together enough of the weeks, and that defense is going to be downright incredible. They'll be right in the mix for the SEC down to the stretch. Just lean Texas in that game early in the season. And then Indiana, Alabama at your 8-9. Not a game I think Alabama wants to see at this very moment, and I don't think it's going to go their way either. But the first round matchup's pretty easy. Texas, I think, beats UTSA. I think they're going to do it early in the season. I expect them to do it again. Ohio State beats LSU. That's one of those games where just not sure LSU is going to be all the way there. I think Ohio State and Julian Sayin will be. Oklahoma beats BYU. That's a team that I like in BYU a lot, but don't have the upside that you probably need to go in and beat Oklahoma. And then I'll take Indiana to beat Alabama. I'll lean on the coaching staff that I trust just a little bit more, but I'm buying into that Alabama team. I'll talk about that a little bit later in the show. And then quarterfinals, you got Texas, Miami. I'll lean towards Texas here. I think the offensive line will be a little bit more ready for this moment than maybe a young Miami group will be. Then for Ohio State, Notre Dame, I'm going to lean towards Notre Dame. I think this CJ Carr kid is downright special, and I think people will figure that out over the season. I think this offensive line's incredible, and I think Notre Dame will get that win. Georgia beats Oklahoma. I tend to believe they're going to do that early in the season as well. We'll see what that game actually holds, but that'll be a really fun one. Indiana, Oregon. I'll lean towards Oregon. I think it's a really good talent roster. I think they learned a lot from the last couple of years. I think they'll be ready for that game when it eventually comes. And then it sets up some great matchups in the semifinals. Texas, Oregon, really fun matchup. I think a lot of people will dub this kind of the national title game before it kicks off. They'll say these are the 2 best rosters. These are the teams that will win a national title. I don't think that'll end up happening, but I do think Texas ends up winning this game, kind of takes this one pretty comfortably. I think the offensive line against a younger group on the other side for Oregon probably leans towards Texas, in my opinion. Then Notre Dame, Georgia, again, I think CJ Carr is going to be a massive, massive piece of this team. I think that's going to be a win for Notre Dame. They move forward. And then I'm going to pick Notre Dame over Texas. I think this team has all the makings you want. I think when I lean towards a national title winner, it's always, what do they have on the lines of scrimmage? What do they have at quarterback? What do they have in the coaching staff? I lean towards Notre Dame among just about anyone else in the country when you talk about that. So I'll take Notre Dame. Marcus Freeman gets their title. I know it's going to make some people mad, but I think that's a really good team this year.
So first, no. Hold
on. Let me get this out. No.
I've got a question for you. I got a quick question before you get into it. I got a quick question. Isn't Mateer in Indiana and not Oklahoma?
No. He's at Oklahoma.
He's at Oklahoma. Okay,
it's Josh Hoover at Indiana.
Hoover's in Indiana. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Go ahead,
Tommy. I want you take the slide down because I need you to see my face when I see this. Listen, buddy. As a guy who has drank from the Notre Dame Kool-Aid twice,
CSA pick. I think they're dangerous.
As a guy who has drank from the Notre Dame Kool-Aid twice and been burned twice, I'm telling you as a warning, don't put your faith in that team. The coaching is great. The talent can be great. But that Irish logo will not let the sins of the past come to fruition. They will hurt your heart. They will hurt your heart, Tommy. I'm telling you as a friend, don't do it to yourself.
I think this sets up just too perfectly for them. They have a schedule that, yes, a lot of people will make fun of. I totally get it. There's 3 games on there that I think are going to be plenty tough, and BYU, Miami, and SMU. They will be tested enough. They will be pushed enough to the limit in some of those games. And by the end of it, they'll be a whole lot healthier. They'll have a whole lot more guys that have taken snaps.
We've all agreed their schedule's weak.
It's not great, don't get me wrong, but you have to go to Provo to play a BYU team I think is going to be in this field. You have to play a Miami team at home, again, I think is going to be in this field, and then an SMU team that you think is going to be the best team in the country. So I think you have enough of these games.
Listen, okay, you want to use my SMU pick against me? That's fine.
That's your fault.
That's cool. Hey, I'm cool with it.
I just think that the balance in today's college football is you want a schedule that is going to challenge you to a certain degree, but you don't want one that is going to kill you when you get to January and you aren't playing with your left tackle or you aren't playing with one of your big-time defensive players. So I'm going to lean towards Notre Dame just because I think they have the coaching staff to get through a season that might have some tough spells or might just have some spells where you get bored of winning 40-10. But at a certain point, you're going to get pushed enough, and I think they'll be ready when it comes down to it. I think Notre Dame gets in at 11-1, and then I think they become a problem for just about everyone in their path.
I'll say this. So
if you go with Notre Dame and they don't make it, I got a drink for you waiting, and we go. I'll be there. I'll be there to catch you when you fall. I'll be there. I ain't gonna let you down.
And Josh is right. Like if they have 2 losses, they're pretty much out. So it's got to be 1 loss at the very least.
Yeah. So I'll go ahead and say this. One, as a Notre Dame hater, to the nth degree, I don't see Georgia losing to Notre Dame in the playoff a second time. I just don't see it happening. Because last time Notre Dame even beat Georgia was because Georgia had some of the worst pass catchers in the nation.
Yeah.
Had they had better pass catchers, Notre Dame would have lost that game. Because you still only beat Georgia by 2 touchdowns with their backup quarterback and the worst pass catchers in the nation. Most drop passes across any other team across the nation.
I am a little bit concerned that's going to carry over into this year just a little bit. I don't think it's going to be terrible, but I think when you go up against elite secondaries, it's going to be tough to get a little bit of separation.
My other thing is the reason why I didn't have Notre Dame in, I have Notre Dame ranked about 13th or 14th by the end of the season. I don't think they're going to make that 12 spot cutoff that's going to allow them to just be automatically given a spot. And I think any team that's just willing to be okay with just giving a spot, we only got to do just the bare minimum to get here, don't deserve to be there. Because any team that says all I got to do is lose just 1 game on a soft schedule to make just the 12th spot to get into the playoff to prove myself isn't really a team worth being there.
Yeah, no, and that's something that's going to be working against them. If you get 2 losses, I don't see a path in there, even with 9-3 teams getting in and like other things. So there is a reality there. There's no doubt about it. I tend to, when I look at this, it's just as simple as, I do think they have a top 5 or so coaching staff. I think the OC is one of the better in the entire country. And Mike Denbrock, Chris Ash is one of those guys that people will doubt. That defense really turned it on late and played some really good football. I think they just have all of the pieces you're going to need. I love the defensive line and the work that they did in the portal. It's a team that, look, I think when you ask those 7 teams at the top that we've talked about really this entire time, take any of them. I think you're going to be playing right with just about any of them. I think we all have one of those teams winning it. So I think it's going to be a total toss-up. I lean towards CJ Carr being the best player in football this year and being the guy that kind of defines this season.
Tommy, throw up my graphic.
Gotcha.
Man.
Are you one?
Matt said, cut the beat.
Yeah.
Why am I not surprised? This is what I expected.
No. I have never
Someone had
picked
to do
Texas. I have never picked Texas to win the national championship. I said last year that was the year before the year, so I do have to pick them as the national champion. But let's get into the games first. Oregon versus North Dakota State. I mean, if it's that close, again, AI made these scores, I will be shocked. I think Oregon wins that game by 40-plus points. I do have Miami and Arizona State as the second game. I think Arizona State is by far my biggest surprise in this field. for anyone watching. I don't have Texas Tech in. I think kind of the Sorsby situation, along with Will Hammond, who lost their only game last year to Arizona State. I just don't think they're good enough at the quarterback position, where I think Cutter Boyle is going to be a really, really good football player for Arizona State. And I think people kind of forget, like, Kenny Dillingham is still a very good coach. And they put a lot more pieces on this offense for him to work with than in years past. So I'm excited to see them. Then I have LSU and Florida making it. Yes, that is another surprise with Florida. I think they had the worst head coach in the Power Four last year on the sidelines. I think Billy Napier was completely lost, completely out of his element. I think John Summerall is a gigantic upgrade. I do have LSU winning that game, though. And then I have Louisville versus Indiana in an interesting game. You have to pick a surprise team coming out of the ACC. I think you're going to get two teams either out of the ACC or Big 12. So I have two teams out of the ACC here, and Louisville would be my surprise team or other pick out of the ACC. The four teams receiving buys, as you see listed, are Georgia, USC, Texas, and Notre Dame. And then after those winners of the first round, that sets up Georgia versus Indiana, Oregon versus Notre Dame, USC versus LSU, Texas versus Miami. That is an insane amount of great games, an insanely great weekend of college football. I'm going to take Kirby Smart to finally beat, or for an SEC team to finally beat Kirk Cignetti and move on. I'm going to take Oregon to beat Notre Dame. I do think those two teams, like I've said all along, I think Texas, Oregon, and Notre Dame are the three most talented rosters in the country. So similar to what Tommy had in the Final Four with Oregon versus Texas, I think people are going to say this could be a national championship matchup, and it absolutely could be, but I'm going to have Oregon winning that game over Notre Dame. And then I'm going to have USC beating LSU. I think LSU's talent is so damn good. I think it's a top 5 roster in college football, but I don't trust Lane Kiffin in his first year to take him much further than this. I would be kind of surprised if they make it much further than this. So I do have USC breaking through and beating LSU. And then I have Texas beating Miami. I think Tommy and I both have Texas playing Miami, so that would definitely be an interesting and fun game. I think the last time they played was when Miami beat the absolute brakes off of Texas in the Cotton Bowl, like 56-3 or something like that. It was crazy. Yeah. And then a Final Four of Georgia, Oregon, USC, Texas would be, I think, one of the most exciting. It probably would be the most exciting Final Four. I mean, you have Dan Lanning going up against Kirby Smart. They used to be on the same coaching staff together. Dan Lanning used to be his former defensive coordinator. So I think that'd be super exciting. Then you have USC versus Texas, 21 years since they were 21 years since they played each other in that classic national championship game. I have Oregon beating Georgia, and I have Texas beating USC, which sets up, in my opinion, the two most talented rosters in college football playing. And I do have Texas barely beating Oregon. That score, honestly, is probably pretty spot on what I would pick. I'm picking Texas to beat Oregon in the championship game.
The only surprise I have here, the biggest surprise actually on this bracket to me, is the fact that you have Southern Cal as the 2 seed getting all the way to the semifinals. That is actually the biggest shocker to me, considering how Southern Cal always falters by mid-season at some point. That's literally, I'm more shocked by that than I am North Dakota State, Arizona, Florida, Louisville. That's what threw me off.
I think USC is one of those teams that, if the Gary Patterson hire is right, if you nailed that one, the way that I think a lot of people expect that they did, there's no reason Lincoln Riley can't put together a season. Let's say it's roughly the season that a Steve Sarkisian had a couple years ago with Texas, where it doesn't look perfect at times. Maybe it's not a fully complete team, but the offense does enough, the defense creates enough turnovers, and you have a talent advantage over a number of teams that you play. So I think USC is one of those teams that's just an absolute wild card, will be all over the place, could very well be an 11-1 team by the end of the season. But again, I think when you get to this time of year, we all like to think that we have the answers. We all like to feel like we can be, the one that gets the entirety of the playoff right. We never are. And USC is one of those teams that absolutely can get into that conversation. As for, I saw Michigander had a question here. The North Dakota State thing is really just a difference of CFP against the NCAA. They aren't allowed to play in bowl games. That is something that the NCAA fully controls, and they are totally in charge of that part. The CFP is an entirely different thing. So anyone can make it from the FBS. Technically, anyone can make it from the FBS, and North Dakota State would kind of fit into that mold. But yes, you are right. 2 years until they can play in a normal NCAA bowl game, but they're allowed to get into the CFP whenever a spot opens for them. So,
and I will say this real quick: the four teams I have out, because they do that in the college football playoff thing. I have Ohio State, Oklahoma, Michigan, and Clemson as my first 4 teams out. I think Ohio State goes 9-3, and the issue is they all play each other, and there's a mess there. So that's why I don't have Ohio State, and they're my first team out.
I think that's the best way to put it. What Josh just said. I think a lot of people want to believe in this Lincoln Riley football team. I don't think enough people believe in Lincoln Riley. So that's going to be the question there. But it's one of those things where you're going to have a couple of these teams like a USC. You're going to have a Louisville. You're going to have an Arizona State. Some of those teams are going to break through. And I think we love to, have this ideal idea of what this is going to look like. It's not going to be that clean at the end of the day.
No, and that's the thing too. Like, this is, people can predict, but again, go back and look at past predictions from last year or the year before, and most people are getting anywhere from 3 to 6 teams right. Like, that's like 6 is like usually the maximum. There's very few people that get more than 6 playoff predictions right for the preseason. So we'll see.
Y'all want to move on forward to
week 0?
Week 0.
Yeah, we can do that
because we do got games coming up here pretty shortly.
Shout out to my godson right there. Man said he want to make his debut. I was like, wait.
If he's got hot takes, we'll get him back on. But
right.
You want to start with your team, Myron, because that's the team that's kicking us off. UNC TCU over there in Ireland. TCU favored by 7.5 right now. 47.5 the over under. It's a weird game. The Ireland one always is.
They can be favored. They can be loved. They can be supported. I don't care. UNC is winning, especially because we were supposed to win this game last year, I think, when we played it. And the way it just transpired, that was like weird. As you described it, it was just all off. But honestly, I'm going into this game. We finally named Billy Edwards the starter. So we finally picked a starter after everything that's transpired, which I'm thankful for. And I'm like, all right, cool. Now we can get situated, get everything down pat. I do see UNC winning this game, probably 31-24. I think the offense looks a lot better under Petrino, and that is able to get us by. It's not going to come without issues, but with Melkar Abujade coming back, with Jordan Shipp ready to rock and roll, with just the team as a whole looking like they're more in tune and ready to play football and actually get to it, I'm excited. I'm excited to see what happens this Saturday, man. Also, by the way, Joel, we said if he has hot takes, you got to bring him back on camera. If he's got some hot takes.
Oh, I got some hot takes?
No, if the little one has some hot takes.
Oh,
he got to, because when I tell you he came on camera, looked at everybody and waved, and the camera zoomed in on him.
Listen, I'm hoping he's future D1. That'd be great.
Like it literally zoomed in on him, and he saw it. He was like, "Oh, hey."
Yeah, I think one of the bigger X factors in this entire weekend, and really the entire year in the ACC, is the Bobby Petrino hire. It's how much has that changed, what that offense is going to be, how much is that going to, meet Bill Belichick halfway, because that defense did play well down the stretch of last season, kind of found a groove in the Bill Belichick way of things, and it's been a crazy offseason, as it's going to be, I think, around there for a while. But at the end of the day, I think you have a couple more answers than you had a year ago. I think Billy is far from the best answer, but definitely a guy that has played a lot of football, can give you some of that dual threat ability. So I'm leaning towards TCU in this one. I think Jaden Craig coming over from Harvard is a massive addition from the portal. That's a quarterback that went entirely under the radar in this process, but I think is a really talented kid. The problems at TCU notwithstanding, I like to think they can put that behind them and continue to move forward. I think Sonny Dykes has a little bit of a bounce back year this year, and I think this is going to be kind of the start of that.
I'll say our biggest thing going into this game is going to be the state of our defense and how it's called, because Steve Belichick's not going to be there.
Yeah.
Right.
Hence why I'm leaning more so this has got to be on Bobby Petrino and the offense. Like the offense is just essentially got to put up numbers to kind of mitigate that, because Steve Belichick, like we all saw, he actually had that defense moving and grooving the second half of the season for UNC. Like we were in games better more times than not. But with him being out indefinitely, and we still don't know exactly what, that play calling is going to be suspect potentially. So we just gotta play ball, and honestly, the offense has got to be willing to step up.
And the other thing was, we already knew the biggest crux of this game was going to be the offense anyway, because we already had a decent idea of what we're going to get with the defense. But the biggest question mark all season long has been, does this offense turn it around? Does it look like an offense that's going to be willing to compete come start of the season? So even if the biggest question mark for most people might be, okay, what's the defense going to look like now that Steve Belichick isn't calling the defense? It was always going to be, can the offense put up numbers? If the offense can't put up numbers, then there's going to be that same question mark of, are we going to go through the same thing that we saw last year of a very mid to awful offense being supported by a defense that has the gas, but sometimes it's just not going to perform the way it wants to win you games. Because we saw several times down the stretch where the defense should have been the thing that won you the game and fall short by one or two plays because the offense couldn't put up enough points to just let the defense just do what it had to do to just close out a game. So it's still, as important as the defense is going to be, we still got to worry about what are we going to see come week one from this offense, with Billy Edwards being the starter. A lot of people having a lot of negative on him because they're like, oh, he's not a big flashy quarterback. He doesn't have the cameras flashing all the time. But when you've talked about
I don't need him to be. I need him to be our Mendoza.
Well, you said you don't need him to be a big highlight reel kind of quarterback. You just need him to be able to not lose you games.
Yeah, and the reality for UNC and for a lot of these, lower level ACC or Big 12 teams is you're going to have to play a little bit of ball possession football. You're going to have to, keep games in the, low teens and keep games in a position where you don't have to score a ton. You don't have to force the ball into tough windows. But again, get enough from that offense, get enough, down to down consistency. And this is a great opener because TCU, that should be an attackable defense this season. It was a year ago. I think there should be enough openings with that group that you could see one of these teams go off on a great run, and then the other team I think could be in for a little bit of a tough year, depending on this one goes.
And to you, Josh, let me tell you something right now. She was the reason why we lost so many games last year, because she was a massive distraction to both the front office, the team, and the media itself alone. Caused too much distraction, too much disjointment throughout the entire team. I claim and will forever claim her as one of the biggest reasons why we were a terrible team last year.
Well, and I think another part of this game, it is being played in Ireland, and if people realize like the time difference and everything, this is going to have an effect for a couple weeks into the season. The same thing happened with Iowa State and TCU last year. They both, after that, didn't look right, especially Kansas State. They didn't look especially right. I mean, they looked terrible. They had a terrible season after that. I'm surprised that teams have continued to do this, because this is a pattern. If you go back to the past 4 or 5 years, the teams that come back from Ireland kind of struggle after that. And it's interesting to see what happens for UNC and TCU. So especially a team like TCU can, that's true, money, but TCU can win the Big 12. Like TCU has a chance, and taking this opportunity is kind of weird to me. But again, you're right, 100%. It's about money. So I guess they're willing to sell that.
They're willing to sell it out, because as a guy who's lived overseas and whatnot, has had the time difference affect me. I know for a fact, it take you a good, even if you're going to Ireland, right, which is a 5-hour time difference. I've been in Italy 6. It takes you, unless you have just adjusted well on the flight, may have stayed up so you can sleep immediately on the same schedule there. It takes you a couple days just to get right. Yeah, it takes you a couple days just to get right and acclimated, especially if you're at different elevations, things of that nature. Yeah. So when you do that, then you got to go play a full football game on a field that you've never practiced on. You've never been on. You don't know the difference. You don't know anything. Then you got to go back stateside, and you got a game the very next week, even if it's against a low opponent or whatever the case may be. You're going to be, like you said, Matt, they're going to look bad. You're going to look weird. You're going to look off because you're not on your regular scheduled program. You don't see Ohio State doing this. You don't see Georgia doing this. You don't see LSU doing this. You don't see Texas doing this. Like,
they're not giving up a home game to do it.
Like, and you don't see the teams that are genuinely competing for a championship or have eyes on championship success doing this because of the effects, because the season is 12, 13 weeks, and you can't afford to be all off because you decide to go overseas just for a little extra money and then come back. It's like, no, I'm trying to keep this as normal as possible.
Here's my thing. From the looks of it, from just how the history of this game has gone, you can't go to Ireland and lose. Because we saw what happened with Florida State when they went over there, played Georgia Tech. They lost to Georgia Tech. Florida State ended up having a terrible season after that. Just like Matt pointed out with Kansas State goes over there, loses to Iowa State. Next thing you know, Kansas State has a terrible season. Iowa State does pretty decent.
And maybe y'all can speak to this a little bit better, but UNC would be pretty high on my list of teams that I think 1 or 2 losses early in the season could snowball pretty quickly, whether it's the outside problems or just the reality of the team not being put together the way you want it to. But I think it's a game that is going to define those 2 seasons quite a bit. It'll kind of set teams off on one direction, and we'll see what happens. Now, the weirdest thing about it is this is not the biggest game containing an ACC team. In fact, we have an ACC conference game in week 0, as crazy as that sounds. NC State, Virginia. We thought, this was a game that they scheduled, and it then was an out-of-conference game last season, which was a mess in and of itself. Now you have a couple ACC teams playing 9 games and some playing 8. Again, it's a mess that hopefully they figure out. But you have an NC State team, CJ Bailey, one of the best quarterbacks in the conference, a really electric kid that will probably go somewhere in the NFL draft next fall or next spring. And then Bo Pribla comes in at Virginia and is their starter coming over from Missouri. That's a really fun quarterback matchup. And 2 teams that are looking at the ACC as a real attainable goal this year, where you get into that game with a Miami or a Louisville or an SMU, you just got to play well in one game. So I tend to lean Virginia here. That's just the team I trust a little bit more. That's the coaching staff I trust. And it still feels like it's CJ Bailey and a whole lot of guys that just aren't fully there for NC State. So I'm going to lean towards Virginia in this one, and frankly, could kind of set NC State on a really bad roll, especially early in the season in the ACC.
I definitely don't disagree. I could also say don't sleep on that Stanford-Hawaii matchup or the Memphis-UNLV matchup.
The Memphis UNLV is the one that I'm most excited for. I think that's going to define the group of 6 matchup. You have Dan Mullen with seemingly a dual quarterback system with Alex Orji and Jackson Arnold. Charles Huff brought an entirely new team and adds a guy like Marcus Stokes at quarterback. That's a really, really fun game with a ton of former Power 4 talent or guys that could be Power 4 talent next season going at it on that field. And that could be the game you turn back to at the very end of the season and say Memphis won the American, UNLV won the Pac-12, I believe, Mountain West. I can't remember which one they're in. Regardless,
Mountain West.
I believe they're still Mountain West. A lot of teams moved over. But at the end of the day, I think you have 2 teams that could be right there neck and neck. It might come back to this game, as crazy as that sounds, in a week 0.
Especially if Memphis comes in looking like they did at several points last year. They were coming in nearly running their conference last year. One of the best teams that came out of that area. UNLV has always been in the mix, especially when it comes down in Mountain West. Jackson Arnold has been a decent arm talent, even when he was at Auburn. He looked good. He just came up. I was like, he just had a couple of unfortunate misses that ended up.
It's just, do you trust Dan Mullen to get the most out of him? I tend to. So I think it's going to be they're favored by 5.5 in the game. I lean them in this one just because they're at home. I think probably would lean Memphis if it was the other place. But at the end of the day, I think it's going to take Charles Huff a little bit of time to get that thing rolling downhill. But once they do, that Memphis team might be the most talented.
I'm actually giving in the Hawaii-Stanford matchup, I'm actually giving Hawaii the edge on this.
They might have the better quarterback. Micah Alejado can play ball, and they got some really, really good wide receivers on that team.
Because they're coming back with pretty much the same team they had in that bowl game last year. They're coming in really ready to prove something to anybody, anytime, anywhere.
And I believe last season they proved this game. Michael Alejado was getting like carried down the field on the final drive of the game, injured his leg, and just kind of gutted through it. I think that's going to be a really, really fun. Stanford better win that game. If they don't, 3 wins is going to be really hard to come by for that football team.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, that is a really fun late night game there.
Listen, we're gonna watch it late night, and it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be a blast.
Locked in from start.
I got a question for y'all though, and Tommy, you probably can answer this. You're the encyclopedia. Why is week 0 called week 0? Like, why isn't that just week 1?
It's a marketing thing. It's not all that special. It's a little bit silly. Frankly, the week 0 thing, I don't necessarily love. I get people like the appetizer for the games, and I get that whole thing. But at the end of the day, I think it's really they wanted an international game. They knew putting it on week 1 wasn't going to work because you weren't going to get people to watch it, and you couldn't continue that game. So they said, we'll add a game before the season, and we'll add a whole week with it. So it's a little bit silly, but it does give you a chance to watch some of these teams like a North Dakota State that you might not see for the rest of the season. They're playing Jacksonville State, a fun little matchup there with their first game in the FBS. You have Sacramento State making their kind of appearance in the FBS, some FCS games that are going to be really fun. So it's about watching all different types of college football. You might as well enjoy it because once you get to week 1, it gets very oversaturated very quickly.
Because the reason being is like, and this is just me being me. Anytime like football starts,
I don't think we'll see more teams wanting to do week 0 games. I do see more teams
simply because it's interesting simply because you add, say you're playing 16 games. Adding another bye week isn't the worst thing in the world. Now, I think you're going to have a pretty big schedule change just in general in the next couple of years, whether it's getting rid of week 0 and just pushing everything up 1 week, whatever that looks like. I think a lot of things are going to change here.
To me, I'm just calling it week 1.
0.
To me, this is literally week 1 because all these games do count towards records. Because when I hear week 0, I hear preseason. I hear this does not count towards your record. That's what
now people are throwing around the idea of joint practices in college football.
Oh,
not a good idea. Would be very bad. But at the end of the day, I think I'll stop short of adding any preseason games to college football because that's outright ridiculous. But again, the changing landscape is going to continue to
do
change.
A joint practice. Let's see how well that goes. Let Texas and OU do a joint practice.
Well, it's not even that. Think about it. You can the transfer portal and everything. You could literally just walk over and be like, "Hey, dude, you want a starting spot on this team? How about you come over?"
Hey, bro.
And now you just you leave, you file an injunction, you get on a new team, and you play football. So it's all a mess, and it needs to be figured out. But
you ain't getting no playing time, and the portal's still open. You want to just slide over here? Like, I'm just saying. You fourth string over there. You could be first string over here. I'm just saying.
You fourth string there. We could put you on third string here.
Yeah.
Second string special teams.
I really do think this is a week where, as much as you don't necessarily have the elite games from start to finish the way we'll have in week 1 and going forward. Obviously, you have a UNC team that has so much different stuff on the table. You have a TCU team that might be coming in a little bit fractured after what happened the last couple of weeks, but hopefully they've put that behind them and can continue forward. And then an NC State Virginia game that could define the ACC, a Memphis UNLV game that could define the Group of 5 CFP spot. There's so much different stuff here that could really come back to define this season. Now, hasn't always with week 0, but again, you have so many big time matchups, including a conference matchup. Tend to believe this one's going to matter a little bit more than past ones.
I'm honestly surprised they put a top 25 team in week 0. With USC and San Jose State. I was actually a little bit surprised by that.
USC, it's an interesting thing.
San Jose State. And if they lose to San Jose State, I'm laughing.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like normally, like stuff, even if it's a matchup like this, normally you see top 25 teams being held out till week 1 because you want all your bigger name teams to be your headliners. So to see USC,
I wonder if Lincoln kind of likes that though. You can fly under the radar for 1 week, let your guys get a little bit more comfortable. We play Fresno State, I believe, in week 1. So
it's a lose-lose for him because if they win week 0, all right, cool, bro. You're not a headliner. You're not a headliner. You're not a big name. But if you lose, you just lost to San Jose State to start your season.
My Big Ten champ is losing to San Jose State.
Yeah, I don't think that's happening. They're favored by 38.5, so I think it's going to be pretty clean for them.
Just know, if they do, the next week's show is going to be hilarious.
But there are two teams. There are two teams that functionally just need to be dominant this weekend. It's USC and it's Florida State, two teams that are favored by more than 30 points. A Florida State team that, look, I don't think it's going to be all that pretty. I don't think Mike Norvell is the coach after this season. I get all of that. It is a team that just has that weird backdoor capability this season with a guy like Ashton Daniels that, again, not a lot of people love, but at the end of the day, it is a team that still has a good amount of talent, has a running back room that I tend to like a lot, led by Usmani Chroma. It's a very funny team, and I think you look at those two teams, different goals for this season in UFC and FSU, but two teams that just need to look dominant against teams that they should be dominant against.
We can get tickets to that Hawaii Stanford game for $16. As low as
I bet you can.
Here's the thing. How am I going to get?
Yeah, the flight is what, 1,500.
Yeah.
Listen, boys, we're gonna pack the RV. We're gonna make it work. We're gonna get the Packer from Enterprise, and we're gonna make it work.
Do you all have anything else on this week, or do you all want to move forward to some win totals?
I will say one last thing I'll say on this. One, I am also excited to see North Dakota State's for their debut their debut game in the FB.
It's been such a dominant team at the FCS, and I think everyone is really interested when those teams come up. It was the same thing with JMU, who just won a title when they came up to the FBS and has pretty immediately made waves. So I think all those teams come in with a lot of confidence, a lot of continuity, like we were talking about earlier. Those are teams that tend to have it just because the FCS, a lot of teams look at that a little bit differently, worry that they can't, make the leap up to the FBS level. We'll find out with that NDSU team, and they're favored by 7 points in that game. I like them to win that one, and then Pac-12 play is going to be really interesting for that team.
Yep. And we're going to kind of see, unfortunately for Sacramento State, I think because of their deal getting into the division that they got into, we're going to see how handcuffed they are.
I think they stretched themselves just a little bit. And I think it could pay off, 5-6 years down the road. You're in a better place financially, and you're in the FBS all the same. But I think this one is a little bit of a stretch to me. I think they probably lose this weekend and then have probably a pretty tough season with Brennan Marion off to Colorado. But week 0, it'll be incredible. We'll be back to break it down. And then week 1 will be absolutely loaded with big-time games. But there are some win totals out there. And I started going through this earlier today. I went through the SEC to start. I don't like any of them. I'll be totally honest with you. I picked 3 of them that I'm going to lean towards in this one. But at the end of the day, that is a conference that I think is going to be downright carnage. I'll pick the one that I like the most. I think there's a couple of different ones. I think Matt might hit one of the ones that I have here. But I'll go Mississippi State over 4.5. I watched a video. Brooks Austin broke down Kamario Taylor earlier this month. I finally watched it today. That kid's a problem. If he has a little bit of time to throw the football, if he has a little bit of time to make plays, this team is going to sneak up on at least 2 SEC opponents, maybe more than that. If they can beat Minnesota in week 2, that's going to be the big time game to kind of decide this one way or the other. I think they get that win. I think Kamario Taylor goes into 2027 as the biggest story maybe in the country. Could not be at Mississippi State. I hope he is. But at the end of the day, I do think that's a player that is going to be a massive factor this season.
No, I like that pick because you're basically just betting on them beating Minnesota. Because if they do that, they should hit.
I need 2 SEC wins and all in out of conference wins, which I tend to believe they can find a way to do that.
I agree.
Matt, you got one?
Yeah. So my over, I have to pick this because I have them in the playoff. Florida over 7.5. I think that if I think they're going to win 10 games, well, that's over 7.5. I think the schedule sets up pretty well for them. Do they have some tough games? Absolutely. Texas, Georgia, Oklahoma are the 3. But honestly, even if I think they can go 9-3 with that schedule, and that still gets me way over. If they go 8-4, I think it's a little bit of a disappointment. It still goes over. So I think the win total is a little bit low here. I just think it's hard for me to believe this amount of offensive talent with a good football coach doesn't win at least 8 football games. I mean, Jaden Ball, Dallas Wilson, Vernell Brown, those guys, and then can you get an average quarterback play? That's kind of what you're shooting for. You get average SEC quarterback play, you're going to win 8 football games. As long as the position's not terrible, I think you're good. So I'm picking them to go over 7.5.
Yeah, and I don't think it's the biggest hire that happened this offseason in terms of national title hopes and what happens going forward. I think Buster Faulkner, from going from Billy Napier to Buster Faulkner, might be the single biggest upgrade that happened in the entire sport. Not to say take anything away from Billy Napier. He's finally given up play calling duties at JMU. But at the end of the day, I think Buster Faulkner does such a good job of just allowing his playmakers to do just that, to allow them to make plays, get them in open field. I think Jaden Ball is going to have a massive year that might end in a Doak Walker award. I'll make that decision throughout the week and release those on my socials. But at the end of the day, I think that's a team that I almost fully leaned into. I couldn't quite do it just with some scar tissue. I think I picked them to make the playoff last year. So I was all over the place with this Florida team. I'll kind of not touch them this season. But again, that's a team that talent-wise could end the season 10-2 and firmly in the playoff.
So I actually have an over and an under on here. So I actually have Kentucky over 4.5 wins. I think they can pull out 5.5, possible 6 this season. It's going to be tough sledding because they have a very tough schedule coming up. But I feel like they can pull out 1 or 2 surprises.
That's also sneaky. One of the better offensive lines in the entire SEC. As crazy as that might sound, that's a really, really talented group.
So yeah, because I see them coming in, definitely beating Youngstown State, South Alabama. I see them. I can see them putting up a good fight against South Carolina. I see them putting up a good fight against Vandy, beating out Vandy, and possibly sneaking that 5th and 6th win against possibly even Missouri and Louisville to end the season out. I feel them possibly pulling that out.
They might have to do some outscoring teams, but I think they can get there, no doubt.
Yeah, I feel like they can definitely get there. My under is actually going to be with Vandy. I feel like Vandy's going to have less than 5.5 wins. I think that team was literally Diego Pavia. If Diego Pavia left, I feel like they lost a lot of their offensive scoring ability with him being gone. It's going to take them about a season or 2 to get back to at least close to that kind of production. I just don't see them having 5.5. I see them maybe at about 4.5 possibly, or even just 5, even just 5 flat. But I don't see them getting that 5.5, 6 wins this season. I just don't see it happening.
Yeah, I like the team. I like the coaching staff a lot. Jared Curtis, I think, is going to be a uniquely talented kid and be one of those guys, again, going into 2027. We're going to talk about him a lot, but I think it's just going to be few and far between in his first year. Comes up from a pretty low level of high school football. Good team, no doubt about it, but not quite the level that you need to play just right away in the SEC. I think we'll make some of those flash plays, but from a week to week, down to down basis, I think it's going to be a little bit all over the place, which sounds crazy for a Vanderbilt team that's been incredibly efficient the last little bit.
And I will throw in my love of the game pick out of here. I also have Duke winning nothing.
Absolutely. Fair enough. I did. My other 2 were just Texas A&M under 8.5. Just the line of scrimmage questions alone. Offensive line changed, I believe, 4 guys. D-line had quite a few changes as well. So a little bit nervous about that. And then I'll lean into Alabama over 8.5. Keelan Russell, give me all the stock you have. I think that's going to be a really special player. I was almost entirely wrong about this quarterback battle throughout it. I thought it was Keelan Russell the entire offseason, then flipped to Austin Mack the last little bit. Was wrong about that. But at the end of the day, I think he's a really talented kid. I think this team is going to be great. And as much as people want to clown Kalen DeBoer, his bad seasons have gotten him 9 wins at Alabama. So I think
they're not bad seasons. They're bad by Alabama standard, but they're not bad seasons.
Yeah.
They got K-State 8.5 wins.
Well, I also have Texas A&M under 8.5. That's my other.
I figured that would be one that you kind of
put on there.
It's just someone has to be that team.
Florida having more than 7.5. Like Florida has been sneakily good in the SEC, and because they're not at that Tebow level of production that they used to be at, we're all used to seeing. Everybody just kind of writes them off every year. I write them off just as a Georgia fan personally, but that's just is what it is. That's just rivalry stuff. But outside of that, Florida has had a good team.
I think the people that are writing them off are kind of relying on Florida didn't make the right hire again. And I don't know if that's the case. I think John Summerall is going to be very good down there. So if it happens this year, we'll see. But I do think over 7.5 feels pretty comfortable. If they play their talent level, they're going to hit over 7.5. I feel
I can see them pulling 8 or 9 wins out.
Yeah.
All right, man. So now it's my turn. Because everybody want to get on me about them. SMU was my over. SMU was at 8.5. I'm easily taking that over, especially when I look at this schedule. Florida State, UC Davis, Louisville, Missouri State, Boston College, Virginia, Cal, Syracuse, Virginia Tech, Wake Forest, Notre Dame, Stanford. I'm easily taking that over. I'm sorry, not sorry. The 2 games I'm looking at that I'm worried about, Virginia, Notre Dame.
Louisville.
Those are the
I'm not even worried about the Virginia.
Actually, no, I'll take that back. Because Joel knows how I am about this. I'm also worried about Syracuse because they play at Syracuse on Halloween night. And I don't know what it is, but playing in Syracuse on Halloween or right around Halloween, freaky stuff starts to happen.
Yeah, the Carrier Dome gets sketchy really quickly.
Like freaky stuff starts to happen around.
I mean, but think about it. We won.
We did. However, were we not worried going into that game?
I mean, listen, the freaky stuff that happens on Halloween night in Syracuse happened to Syracuse.
Like freaky stuff happened, but overall, bro,
that is an interesting team coming into this year as well. But
like when I look at this schedule, I look at this team. This is a team that has been putting up 9-win seasons easily the last 2 years.
Yeah,
like you can't tell me they're not going.
The schedule
with that schedule. Like, and if the schedule stays the way it is, especially because we know rankings and stuff changes, but if it were to stay the way it does, that's easily over 8 wins.
And a fascinating player
should
for
be at
SMU.
Least a 10-win season. Should be at least a 10-win season.
Yeah, an SMU player that I'm willing to buy stock in for, I believe, the 5th time in his career is Jalen Hale, the wide receiver that came over from Alabama, was a 5-star kid coming out of high school, was supremely talented, and I thought he was going to be kind of the next great Alabama wide receiver. Didn't fully work out for a number of different reasons, but he finds his way to SMU, and I think that could be a massive player for a team that has way more wide receiver talent than you would think. But in the ACC, I'll kind of play off that. I'll go with my favorite one. It's maybe my favorite team coming into this year. I'll go Cal over 6.5. JKS, I think outside of Darian Mensah is the best quarterback in this conference. You could argue he's better than Darian Mensah, but he won't have the surrounding cast, obviously, that Mensah will. I think Tosh Lupoy just brings a higher floor to this defense. I don't think it'll be perfect. Still don't quite have the talent that you want to have, but the offense, I think, can score at a really, really high rate. I think if JKS has 3 to 5 seconds every single snap you give him, he's going to tear apart defenses pretty consistently. So in an ACC that's going to be wide open, I'll take the offense that I think is going to flex their muscles quite a bit on Saturdays.
I'm also going to say this. Sorry, Matt, it's your Big Ten champs. They're open at 8.5. I'm not taking that. I'm not taking that, sir. Especially when I look at their schedule. Like when I look at the Trojan schedule. So yeah, you got San Jose, Fresno State, and then Louisiana Raging Cajuns and Rutgers, their first 4 games. Then you got number 2 Oregon, 17 Washington, 18 Penn State, at Wisconsin, then versus Ohio State, then at Indiana. Yeah, no, you're not doing that. I'm sorry, you're not doing that.
They're doing
USC is that team that
fight on.
Like we were talking about earlier.
Not.
Like we were talking about earlier, could have that moment where the bottom falls out, where Lincoln Riley loses a couple of games, maybe loses that game at Wisconsin, and then loses all the support that you could have behind the scenes. Everything slowly starts to fall apart. Again, I think he's going to do enough to keep that job. Don't have him in the playoff, but I think he's going to do just enough to keep that job and keep things rolling. But it is a job that I think if you're pinpointing teams that could kind of have the bottom fall out on them some point in the season, USC is probably relatively high on that list. Not sure it's going to happen, but again, I think they're kind of in that grouping.
If the bottom falls out, it's going to fall out in that stretch from Washington to Ohio State.
No doubt.
Yeah, I agree.
If it falls out, it's going to fall out in that stretch.
I think that Wisconsin game is a massive one. If you lose a couple going into that one, and then you play at Wisconsin with an offense in Colton Joseph that I think would be a whole lot more dangerous than people want to give it credit for. It's just one of those games that has a little bit of worry written all over it for me.
Think about that stretch from Oregon to Indiana. That's a tall task to ask of them.
Well, I think
they're going to beat Oregon.
Yeah, well, I don't think they're going to beat Oregon. I think Oregon is going to be that one game. It's like, okay, no, we can, like, if we lose, okay, it was Oregon. But if you lose to Washington or Penn State or Wisconsin, any of those 3 games in that stretch, the morale of that team's going to bottom out for a good.
And then you got to go right into playing Ohio State,
Indiana. Yeah. Like,
hey,
sure, you could probably
Ohio State is traveling like across country on Halloween night to Southern California. I'm taking USC.
Yeah, that's one I got circled for this season.
It's going to be a good game for sure. But yeah, I think if you lose to any of those 3 teams after Oregon,
I'm staying up for it.
I said Joel ain't.
But speaking of the Big Ten, I'll play off actually.
You know how the season comes up by then.
I'll play off the Cal one I gave a second ago. I'll take the team that they're playing in week 1. I'll say UCLA over 6.5. Again, one of the teams is going to get a little bit of a head start in week one for me. One's not, but I really like this group. I think Bob Chesney is going to do enough to get the best out of Nico. I think we talked about Alonzo Barnett last week when we were talking about UCF and what they could possibly be. I think you look at Alonzo Barnett, you see a lot of the similar things in Nico, a lot of that physical ability, a little bit of ability to run the football. I think that's going to open up enough for this UCLA team. I also have over Iowa 7.5. So a little bit of love to the Hawkeyes there, but I think this UCLA team is going to be one of the bigger stories around the country. I think we go into 2027 with, it might be a little bit unrealistic, but some big hype around this UCLA team. And I think it starts for good reason this year.
I don't hate that. I just think they have to bring in so much talent to overhaul that roster. I like Bob Chesney as coach. I think he's going to be really good. I think it's going to rely a lot on Nico. Like, what is Nico this year? So that's going to be interesting.
He was good a year ago. Probably going to need to bump up the stats and bump up the efficiency a little bit more. They just brought in Trent Hendricks, one of those other players that was kind of bouncing around the transfer portal, a JMU guy that was a big-time player for them, adds him to Sahir West. I think they have enough. And in a Big Ten that I tend to believe has those top 3 to 4, maybe 5 teams, including Michigan, and then kind of falls off a cliff. I don't think it's going to be terrible, but I do think there's going to be UCLA will be right in that realm of a Iowa, of a Wisconsin to be able to win some of those games. So I think it's going to be up in the air, maybe down to the wire with that squad, but I think they can do enough.
Go ahead, Matt.
I'll just hit these real quick because USC we've talked about enough. I have them over. And then this conference, by the way, I feel the least confident about, but I have Ohio State under. So those are my 2 big takes there. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, the Ohio State one is Ohio State and Texas will be kicked around a lot the next couple of weeks. So that's 9.5. There's a reason those are at 9.5 because those are 2 teams that play really, really tough schedules. Whoever loses that game in week 2 could be on their track to going under that number.
I agree with you, Tom, on UCLA because after the turnaround they had after replacing their offensive coordinator last year, the team looked like a whole different team. They looked Maliaba's whole situation improved. The offense looked like a unit for the rest of the season. So I do see them pushing for more.
Speaking of Jerry Neuheisel, that entire brainstem has found its way to Northwestern. Kind of an interesting staff up there with him and Chip Kelly running that offense.
Yeah. And I also say this though. I also take Nebraska under 6.5.
I'm with you there.
Dylan Raiola leaving, your best quarterback gone to go to Oregon just to watch him sit on the bench for another season, which is surprising to me. I don't know why he'd made that choice, knowing that Dante Moore came back. But it is what it is.
Because he's done.
I think there's trying to follow the Dante Moore way of things while also making $1.5 million.
He's trying to be Patrick Mahomes so bad. The only difference is he just didn't go to Texas Tech.
He might have wanted to with how that ended up. But the Nebraska one, I think you're right. Anthony Coulanger is a really fun player coming over from UNLV after they lost Kenny Minchie in that crazy process. But this is a team that plays Indiana, Oregon, Washington, Ohio State, Iowa, and Illinois. And is a team that if Anthony Coulanger is playing anywhere close to as hectic of football that he played a year ago, he's going to get eaten alive by these Big Ten defenses. So that's a team that I just can't fully buy into. Matt Rule, I somehow think he's going to keep his job, as crazy as that sounds. I'm not sure what's going on over there when it comes to finances because they just extended that guy a little bit ago. But at the end of the day, it's going to get really sketchy over there pretty quickly. I think 6 wins is probably where you're going to peak, maybe 7 if things go perfectly, but I'm not betting on that.
Things have to go absolutely perfectly for
Nebraska. Fire him.
They're not going
$75 million buyout at 8.5.
Don't worry. Matt Rule will get the money and then become an analyst on an elite team next year and be in the coach's year for $20 an hour the way Tom Herman is.
I don't want to hear this man breathe on my television set, let alone have to see him.
That's too bad.
Nebraska, I will put $2 on it. I'll put $2 on the 75 million. Fire him. You got $2 from me.
Now, I do have a question, but I know we're running a little long. I do have a question for y'all though. What exactly happened to Michigan State?
A lot.
Hey,
the specifics.
They tried the bright green uniforms, and it was downhill from there, bro. That's where.
That's the wildest thing. Like after the neon numbers happened, after that,
we'll leave the specifics of the Mel Tucker finish to the door. But at the end of the day, you spent a lot of money to put together a team that was essentially the entire team's not going to mess it up. And then Kenneth Walker is going to go crazy on Saturdays. And we're going to win 10 games because we have the best run game in the Big Ten and we're going to do some really incredible things. That's all well and good. When you then pay that guy $90 million over 10 years, you're putting yourself in a hole. And I think Michigan State thought they had the guy, thought they were going to strike gold really early on, and didn't. And they put together a team the next year. Kenneth Walker wasn't on it. It was really bad, and they just had to start digging themselves out. And unlike at Ohio State, at LSU, at Texas, they don't get to dole out $78 million and then field a team that's going to be really competitive the next year. It's going to take time. I like the Pat Fitzgerald hire. I think if you're going to play this kind of Moneyball approach that some of these teams have to play, that is a good coach to have around there. But again, it's one of those teams, like a lot of these teams in the SEC and the Big Ten. I just think this isn't the era for you to really thrive. I think it could be, 1 year here or there, but consistently, I don't know if Michigan State fits into the math of the Big Ten going forward.
Here's the thing, though. Crazy enough, Michigan State as a whole in all of their sports have kind of fallen off. Like Tom Izzo and Michigan State basketball.
That might be a deeper problem that we don't even know about.
But used to. Michigan State football ain't the same that it used to be. Like Michigan State as a whole in terms of their athletic program is not as prominent as they used to be. Now, why that is?
Remember, Izzo did bring up the issue because Izzo had said himself, like, it just seems like when it comes down to the presidents of the school, the president when it comes down to the school and the head of the athletic, the AD, it just seems like somebody just isn't putting their thought process where it should be.
Yeah, it seems like there's some type of alignment problem when it comes to NIL over there, and that's something it's kind of impossible to know. But while all that's happening, while the chaos is happening up there, Wisconsin's starting to get their act in order when it comes to NIL. A couple of the other teams, so they got to figure it out pretty quickly, or it's going to be a couple of tough years. But since we're running a little bit long, let's try to wrap it up with the Big 12. We'll run around really quickly. I'll give my favorite pick of the bunch. It's just simple as, if you're giving me Kalani Sitake anything under 9 wins, I'll take it. I think this is the best coach in the conference. I think this is a team that is going to play really consistent football. I like what Bear Bachmeier did a season ago. Continue to develop with that. I love the tight end group that they put together. I think this is a team that's going to at least get to 9 wins. I tend to have them at 11 wins before that Big 12 title game.
I think that's completely fair. And you're, like you said, you're betting on Sitake, and it's one of those conferences like any team basically can win it. For the first 8 or 9
might as well bet
teams.
On the coach.
Yeah, exactly. So I have no issue with that.
Because we've seen coaching be the absolute difference in a lot of these games,
especially now.
I don't disagree.
The talent levels are so remarkably even at this very moment. The coaching is becoming such a massive piece. Another reason why I lean Notre Dame in the title is just I think it's going to become the margins are so much thinner. And again, the week 0 conversation, those margins of being a little bit more tired in week 1 and week 2 do matter at the end of the season, especially for some of these big time teams.
Because I actually have 2 favorites coming out of the Big 12. I'll actually say BYU and Baylor, honestly. Like Baylor with a fresh live arm quarterback coming in.
Yeah. And
you have what everybody calls one of the quarterback whisperers of college football being at Baylor. Sure, they can improve the system that they have going around him, his technique and his issues. I don't see how Baylor couldn't push BYU when it comes down to trying to be the top of the conference.
It's a funny team in Baylor because, I think it's a fascinating team because Dave Aranda probably kept that job because the AD didn't keep his, which is a little bit of a tough place to be in if you're a head coach because you're worried the new guy's not going to like you no matter what you do. But it's a moment where he's going to have to deliver. I'm not super confident about that team one way or the other, but if you can get the best out of DJ Lagway, if you can consistently get him to push the ball downfield and not have some of those mistakes he had a year ago, that's going to be one of the more talented quarterbacks in the entire conference. I don't know if he's one of the better ones, but that's something to be told. But I do think that's a team that might be a little bit boom or bust potential this season. But again, in a conference that is going to be all over the place, I think they're right in the mix with some of those teams right in the middle.
Yeah, because to me, Baylor's absolute ceiling is probably about 7 wins.
Probably about right.
All right.
Maybe 8 wins if everything goes perfectly. But
yeah, if everything goes perfect, 8. But yeah, it's definitely ceiling of 7.5.
My surprise over Iowa State. And honestly, I'm going to be real with you, Tommy. There's no logic behind it. I just
I'll give you a little bit if you'd like it.
I'm just being real with you. I think they're opened at 4.5.
Yeah.
I'm like they're open at 4.5. Okay, you can get over 4.5. I think I look at it. It's like
no one's trusting Jimmy Rogers coming over from Washington State with that one. I think the piece with Iowa State that's fascinating to me, and so many of these kind of lower level Big 12 teams have this mold, is you brought in a quarterback that's such a wild card. Jalen Raynor comes in from Arkansas State and is a really, really talented kid, kind of that dual threat aspect. And again, in this conference, you're going to have one or two teams that aren't complete by any metric, but have that one or two players that functionally change games every Saturday. I think TCU is going to be one of those teams. I think a team like Iowa State could be one of those teams as well. Lower part of the conference, but absolutely can make a little bit of noise in some of these games.
Yeah. So I'm just being real. No true and tried logic behind it. I'm just like, you know what? I think y'all can get over that. And then the one that a lot of y'all are on that I am not completely sold on. I've said it multiple times on this channel. I'm just sorry. I'm not completely sold on BYU. I'm just not. And the thing is, I'm not saying they haven't been good the past couple years. I'm not saying that. And I think this is, for some reason, I think this is a regress year. I think they just missed the 8-8 they're projected at. I think they're like at 7. I'm not saying they're going to be like fall off a cliff and be like a 4-win team, but God, no, that'd be stupid. But my gut is just telling me I'm not buying into the BYU stock, and I could be wrong on that. And if I am, cool. I'm by the Mormon stock. All right, bet, cool. Whoop-de-doo.
We did talk about this last week when we were talking about Texas Tech, and some of us didn't pick them to win the championship in the Big 12. And we were saying the talent level a lot of these teams has gotten a little bit better. That does apply to BYU as well. They got better, I do think, from a talent perspective. But an Oklahoma State team got a whole lot more dangerous. Houston got a whole lot more dangerous. TCU, a lot of these teams that BYU is going to have to face at some point this season. So again, I don't know if there's a team in this conference I feel overly confident in one way or the other, but I lean on the veteran nature of BYU a little bit more. But again, I think there's so many wildcard teams in this conference that could totally change it.
For sure.
Yeah, my over is 6.5 for Arizona State. I mean, I have them in the playoff, and that's just an absurdly low number for them.
That just comes down to, can he get the most out of Carter Boley? Because I think that ability is pretty top-notch when you talk about that conference.
And then Utah's my under. I just think they lost way too much player-wise and coach-wise. They have a pretty rough schedule as it goes for Big 12 standards. I just don't think they're going to win over eight games this year. I think they'll probably end up 8-4, which is still a solid year, but under Utah standards. So I have an under there for Utah.
Yeah, we talked about Buster Faulkner leaving Georgia Tech. That's a massive loss for the Yellow Jackets. Jason Beck leaving Utah is a massive deal. It's a really, really good coach. It's a guy that I think he's going to get quite a bit out of Bryce Underwood. Flirted with the Michigan over in this one, but at the end of the day, I think that's a team that just has too much changing. I trust Morgan Scalley again in the 5-6 years that are going to come for that program. Not sure he can turn it around as quickly as you wanted to this season. So I'm kind of with you on that one. All right, boys, we got anything else? Or y'all want to wrap it up?
Listen, I'm good. I think we can wrap this up. What say y'all, though? How y'all? Everybody feeling good?
I'm ready to roll. We'll have actual
games to talk about next week,
which is a beautiful thing. And then we'll get into week one that might be missing a little bit of meat on it, but has some of those matchups that are going to be massive. Ole Miss Louisville matchup that I have to imagine Matt's watching pretty closely with that prediction.
Oh, for sure. For sure.
But I'm definitely looking at this Louisville matchup for sure.
With all that being said, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, people of all places, that has been the episode on the 8 o'clock show of the Voice of College Football 365. You can always check out our follow-up shows. I think on Monday and Tuesday they do them on here too for the follow-up shows. But then also, come back, join us next Sunday and every other Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern here on this channel. Get all 4 of us, the lovely people that we are. And if you want more Texas football, make sure to join Tommy and Matt on Tuesdays at 7 p.m. They used to be 8, now they 7, so y'all can get there earlier and talk more Texas football. And for us, North Carolina football, join us on Tuesdays at 9 p.m. We'll be ready to talk about our Week 0 matchup more in depth this week, while Tommy and Matt will be talking about the chaos that is happening at Texas right before their season. And Also, if y'all want to join me and Joel, we will probably be doing a watch party for week 0 for North Carolina on our channel or something like that. We're going to figure that out. But y'all wrap it up. Give your goodbyes to the people, man. Y'all say what you got to say.
Yeah, enjoy the week. It's going to be a very fun week, a lot of anticipation, and then just take it all in on week 0. It's probably the last weekend where you get to not feel a massive amounts of pressure on Saturday, at least for some of us at the end of the day. So enjoy it while you can. We'll be on Tuesday. We'll talk about hopefully not too much chaos, but at least a little bit of chaos in Austin, Texas.
Yeah, I hope everything is kind of settled by the time we talk Tuesday because
hopefully we get some more news.
Yeah, we've talked offensive line and linebackers like the weakest position groups on the Texas team. Well, we lost what I thought was going to be our second or third best linebacker. But we did gain, Cole Hudson from the NFL back to the offensive line. So
we'll take what we can get.
Yeah, so definitely interesting, but excited to talk about everything Texas, 7 p.m. Eastern time Tuesday.
Once again, football's back. There's no more speculation. There's no more rumor. We're about to see. Everybody's about to start having to put their money where their mouth is. Rumors about to come to light. Rumors about to either get confirmed, shut down. Speculations about to get confirmed, shut down. It is about to be an exciting season. I am so ready for this to start. Ready for week 0, week 1, all these great matchups that's coming in. We will have, like I said, we're gonna have to start after this week. We're gonna have a whole lot to talk about after this week. And I'm ready for it.
All right, man. Peace. Much love to all y'all. We out of here. Also, here's a reminder: if any of y'all had a draft and y'all took Ashton Genty, go ahead and make that move now because he has been confirmed torn ACL. So
try to make your draft,
make your moves as you see fit. Other than that, peace. We out of here.